Neville Goddard, Out of This World, Chapter 4, No one to change but self. And for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they also might be sanctified through the truth. John 17:19. The ideal we serve and strive to attain could never be evolved from us, were it not potentially involved in our nature. It is now my purpose to retell and to emphasize an experience of mine printed by me 2 years ago. I believe these quotations from The Search will help us to understand the operation of the law of consciousness and show us that we have no one to change but self. The Search is also in another playlist on the channel. I believe it's just one video, so you want to check it out. Once in an idle interval at sea, in an idle interval at sea, I meditated on the perfect state and wondered what I would be were I of two pure eyes to behold iniquity. If to me all things were pure and were I without condemnation. As I became lost in this fiery brooding, I found myself lifted above the dark environment of the senses. So intense was feeling, I felt myself a being of fire dwelling in a body of air. Voices as from a heavenly chorus with the exaltation of those who had been conquerors in a conflict with death were singing, "He is risen, he is risen." And intuitively I knew they meant me. Then I seemed to be walking in the night. I soon came upon a scene that might have been the ancient pool of Bethesda. For in this place lay a great multitude of impotent folk, blind, halt, withered, waiting not for the moving of the water as of tradition, but waiting for me. As I came near, without thought or effort on my part, they were, one after the other, molded as by the magician of the beautiful. Eyes, hands, feet, all missing members, were drawn from some invisible reservoir and molded in harmony with that perfection which I felt springing within me. When all were made perfect, the chorus exulted, "It is finished." Then the scene dissolved and I awoke. I knew this vision was the result of my intense meditation upon the idea of perfection. For my meditations invariably bring about union with the state contemplated. I had been so completely absorbed within the idea that for a while I had become what I contemplated. And the high purpose with which I had for that moment identified myself drew the companionship of high things and fashioned the vision in harmony with my inner nature. The ideal with which we are united works by association of ideas to awaken 1,000 moods to create a drama in keeping with the central idea. My mystical experiences have convinced me that there is no way to bring about the outer perfection we seek other than by transformation of ourselves. I was just talking to somebody on the phone, a friend of mine, and he was telling me about this YouTube channel that he watches, and the gal is interpreting, he hasn't sent me the channel yet, but somehow she was telling these gals who have these opinions of men and why they can't meet one or what their qualifications are and etc. And I was telling him that because on that channel some of these gals were claiming that the perfect man had to be 6'4", he had to be a certain look, he had to have a certain kind of income, he had to have a certain kind of bank account, etc. And I retorted that until any of these ladies are willing to change within themselves their own consciousness about men, they're going to be on the outside continually chasing their tail. They're going to be running in circles constantly because they're on the outside and they haven't conferred within. They haven't realized that I and my Father are one. They haven't gotten to that place. And they sound pretty far from it, but anybody can, whenever they choose, arrive at that place and start to go that direction, because that's where the truth and the answers are. And that's where you can change your consciousness. And then that's where you focus on your desire, you impress your subconscious, then you behold it in your 3D world. But the bringing up of that idea that he had about that channel was fascinating. So he's going to send it to me, because it sounds like that gal is doing some good interpretations, because they're giving these gals the same business I would. Anyway, my mystical experiences have convinced me that there is no way to bring about the outer perfection we seek other than by the transformation of ourselves. As soon as we succeed in transforming ourselves, the world will melt magically before our eyes and reshape itself in harmony with that which our transformation affirms. Wonderful. In the divine economy, nothing is lost. We cannot lose anything save by descent from the sphere where the thing has its natural life. There is no transforming power in death, and whether we are here or there, we fashion the world that surrounds us by this intensity of our imagination and feeling, and we illuminate or darken our lives by the concepts we hold of ourselves. Man, this is a heavy, heavy, very powerful sentence. That was something that kept reminding me during my Seth classes. It just kept reminding me that we're going to miss this, that after we leave this party, I call this the party. You ever go to a party and everybody's having a good time and all of a sudden someone leaves the party and you don't really know they're gone, but they are gone. They just left and you didn't know it. The party's still thriving and moving along, even though they're absent. Your friend split, left at another time, and you didn't even know they were gone for hours. That's the same thing I call leaving the party when someone leaves this reality. So they left the party because this is a big party. Everything we're experiencing is one big party. We all are players in that party. We all have a role. We all have desire. We all have self-concepts. We all have places in the party. But listen to this sentence. In the divine economy, nothing is lost. We cannot lose anything save by descent from the sphere where the thing has its natural life. There is no transforming power in death. And whether we are here in the party or there out of the party, we fashion the world that surrounds us by the intensity of our imagination and feeling. And we illuminate or darken our lives by the concepts we hold of ourselves. Who am I? Right? What self-concept are you running this morning? Here you are, God, I am all that is. It's also you, because here comes your self-concept. Here's another self-concept, another. They are infinitely available, and they're in every single color, if you can imagine. Every single flavor, every single financial level, every single romance level, every single love level, every single freedom level. All self-concepts exist. Excuse me. So, repeating the sentence, there is no transforming power in death. So when you are done with your self-concept and you're meeting what Neville's going to talk about when we cross over into the promise, we're going to get into, well, let's not go there yet. Everything here is restoration. You're restoring from one self-concept to another self-concept. Okay? I know I'm crossing the line a little bit here with the promise, but the idea is you're constantly changing. Your capacity is always the ability to change whatever you are as you self-conceive yourself to be. You can be who you are today with your income, your love, your health, your freedom. You can change all of those by changing that concept, impressing your subconscious, and then it objectifies into a new reality. And this is you and your new reality here. Any and all of this is flexible and open to change. There's no transforming power in death, and whether we are here or there, whether we are here in this party or there not in this party, which we can't cross that yet. It's the idea, see, because when you leave a self-concept, you're only returning right here, because everything is just consciousness. Let's just deal with it now. When you leave the self-concept and you no longer are in the party, as I say, you've only returned here. And whether you instantly arrive again, or here, or whatever, you're going to arrive somewhere. You're never not in flux. Your awareness of being, your awareness of I am, is a consistent and an always and an is. Because you leave the party of this self-concept doesn't mean you leave this out here. You're always here. You're always home. Home is where you are all the time. You go into a self-concept and you illusion yourself, you elude yourself from that reminder that you are always home. Then you go out here looking for answers. You forget your home has the answers. So there's no transforming power in the absence of your self-concept. If you think ending your self-concept is going to transform you, there is no transforming power in just jumping by the act of unaliveness. There's no transforming power in death, and whether we are here or there, we fashion the world that surrounds us by the intensity of our imagination and feeling, and we illuminate or darken our lives by the concepts we hold of ourselves. So I might as well touch on this concept of, when he gets into the promise, Neville discusses restoration versus resurrection. So restoration, let's change what we're seeing here into a different image. This is I am all that is God. Now this is all the different lives that are lived by God. He made us in his image so that he would become us and we would become him. He would forget who he was by becoming us so that we could wake up and remember that we are him. So we're all different lives, okay? In the concept of restoration, when one life ends, according to Neville, let's say you're 95 to 105 years old and you've got an old, used, worn body, and you leave the body, you leave the party, you wake up, according to Neville, again instantly as a 20-year-old with the same challenges, the same self-concept, similarly, that you're working with these certain challenges that you are all about in your life. You wake up in another, basically new vehicle with the same challenges that you had here. This one's gone, but you are restored. And Neville knew of this because he would meet these people in his dream state. He would meet his father, his mother, and other people who've passed away. And this is called restoration, when you re-arrive. But the promise, and what Neville talks about there, is what's called resurrection. Resurrection is when you're done with this entirely. You've done many restorations, and you're working on your last trip here. And so your last trip into this system is when you're going to be doing your work like Neville did, and he was well aware that he was in a state of resurrection, potential resurrection, not restoration, where you're continuing back into the wheel of life. His concept of his last life, which would be Neville Goddard, he lived it and satisfied what he came to do, and he even spoke about it in many lectures. That it was his work was done. I think his work was done when he unveiled the idea of revision. That's where the real bomb dropped. Revision is the most wonderful, freeing concept, and we're going to get into it. But restoration is when you're going back into the system. Resurrection is when you're done with the system and you're graduating. And who knows? I don't know. You don't know. Resurrection might mean just another system where it's a more advanced situation. We don't know this. And, I think we can intuitively pick up on that like Neville did. But this system and its challenges, like Seth in the Seth material said, this system that we are in, this co-creative reality that we're co-creating, he said this is one of the most difficult systems to go into, because only the bravest souls go into this system that we are in. You might want to read the Seth material. It works with the Neville material quite a bit. It's very good. But Seth said this is one of the most difficult, and only the bravest souls dare go here, because the challenges we have here are not for the faint of heart. And it's right there in the first sentence. There's no transforming power in death, whether we are here or there. We fashion the world that surrounds us by the intensity of our imagination and feeling. We illuminate or darken our lives by the concepts we hold of ourselves. It was a different point I wanted to make. But when you're here, I think it was previously on the page, but when you're here, you want to realize that your lessons here are the most valuable that they can be offered. Your lessons that you're going through right now, and as mountainous as they seem like giants, and you seem like the grasshopper. The ability, here's the point. The ability to learn them here is the point why you're here, is that if you learn them in this classroom, the system we are in, then this is the best place you can learn them, because you're just going to restore. Eventually, you're going to learn the lesson. We're all working towards the promise. I'm giving a massive commercial towards the promise, which will be coming up. But we're all working towards waking up with the promise. That's the idea of what Neville put forth. And so learning why you're here is the point. It behooves you to get your lesson. Take your lickings. Realize that you are the conscious co-creator of your existence. I say co-creator because he's also created you. He made you in his image. Forgot he was him while you, so that you would wake up remembering you're him. So it is a co-creation of sorts, isn't it? But if this lesson is so difficult to remember, then that's the lesson we need to be focused on, is to remember I am. It is really that simple. I mean, it sounds simple, but when you're heavily focused out here, it's not that easy, because you're not going into your closet and closing the door. Okay, moving on. Nothing is more important to us than our conception of ourselves. And especially is this true of our concept of the dimensionally greater one within us, as I was just describing. All right? Those who help or hinder us, whether they know it or not, are the servants of that law which shapes outward circumstances in harmony with our inner nature. It is our conception of ourselves which frees or constrains us, though it may use material agencies to achieve its purpose. Because life molds the outer world to reflect the inner arrangement of our minds, there is no way of bringing about the outer perfection we seek other than by the transformation of ourselves. No help cometh from without. The hills to which we lift our eyes are those of an inner range. It is thus to our own consciousness that we must turn as to the only reality, the only foundation on which all phenomena can be explained. We can rely absolutely on the justice of this law to give us only that which is the nature of ourselves. To attempt to change the world before we change our concept of ourselves is to struggle against the nature of things. Trying to change the world out there before you change before you change our concept of ourselves, not our nature. Our nature is a totally different point. The concept. This is a self-concept. We're back to the concept viewpoint. This is where we are. This is where we want to be. To attempt to change the world out here before we change our concept of ourselves is to struggle against the nature of things. There can be no outer change until there is first an inner change. Not interchange, but that kind of does make sense. Inner change. As with, so without. As within, so without. As within, so without. As within, so without. As within, so without. I am not advocating philosophical indifference when I suggest that we should imagine ourselves as already that which we want to be, living in a mental atmosphere of greatness, rather than using physical means and arguments to bring about the desired change. Everything we do, accompanied by a change of consciousness, is but a futile readjustment of surfaces. I said that wrong, excuse me. Everything we do unaccompanied by a change of consciousness is but futile readjustment of surfaces. However we toil or struggle, we can receive no more than our assumptions affirm. To protest against anything which happens to us is to protest against the law of our being and our rulership over our destiny. Very, very interesting sentence. To protest against anything which happens to us is to protest against the law of our being and our rulership over our own destiny. So if you have the capacity to change your self-concept, impress your subconscious, and beget the new reality, the new self-concept, then anything that happens to this self-concept and you protest against that, you're protesting against what you created. You're the creator of this self-concept. He made you in his image so that you would be him and he would become you awake as him. So you are the creator of your own reality. Your imagination creates reality. For you to protest against anything that happens against you or to you, you're protesting against you. You're the creator. Back to that finger with the one pointing away and three pointing back at you. The circumstances of my life are too closely related to my conception of myself not to have been formed by my own spirit from some dimensionally larger storehouse of my being. Oh my gosh. Let me read that again because it got me good. The circumstances of my life are too closely related to my conception of myself not to have been formed by my own spirit from some dimensionally larger storehouse of my being. Conception of myself by my own spirit from the dimensionally larger storehouse of my being, my awareness of being. If there is pain to me in these happenings, I should look within myself for the cause. For I am moved here and there and made to live in a world in harmony with my concept of myself. Intense meditation brings about a union with the state contemplated. And during this union, we see visions, have experiences, and behave in keeping with our change of consciousness. This shows us that a transformation of consciousness will result in a change of environment and behavior. That is so much a wonderful statement and paragraph, very small paragraph, which I will repeat because it is profound. Intense meditation. I am, close your eyes, go home, close the closet, go in your closet, shut the door, you're in secret. Intense meditation brings about a union with the state contemplated. You're contemplated your desire of what you want to be. Intense meditation, you're making real that fourth dimensional reality. And during this union, we see visions, have experiences, and behave in keeping with our change of consciousness. That which you're visioning, you're keeping in line with it. This shows us that a transformation of consciousness will result in a change of environment and behavior. Once you beget this new self-concept, and you give birth to that son from this union of your conscious and subconscious self, they form a union, the male and the female, and they give birth to the son. This is the objectification of your new reality. Let's say you're working on, you want to be married and you're single, and you change your consciousness. You finally make that impression. You all of a sudden go on a date and you meet that person. The behavior you have here is definitely different than the behavior you have here. This shows us that a transformation of consciousness will result in a change of environment and behavior. Your environment here and your behavior here will be different because you changed it in your meditation. You made the impression into your consciousness. Your behavior and environment will change. All wars prove that violent emotions are extremely potent in precipitating mental arrangements. Every great conflict has been followed by an era of materialism and greed in which the ideals for which the conflict ostensibly was waged are submerged. This is inevitable because war evokes hate, which impels a descent in consciousness from the plane of the ideal to the level where the conflict is waged. If we would become as emotionally aroused over our ideals as we become over our dislikes, we would ascend to the plane of our ideal as easily as we now descend to the level of our hates. Do you have a social media account? Do you see anybody emotionally aroused over their dislikes? Do you see other videos on YouTube or anywhere, it doesn't matter, any social media, or even hear it in conversation at the water cooler? If we would become as emotionally aroused over our ideals as we become over our dislikes, we would ascend to the plane of our ideal as easily as we now descend to the level of our hates. If you are here and you're a female and you want to be in love and married and you're single, it doesn't help you to have a hatred against men if a man is your object of your marriage that you want to be in your new reality. You're a female, you're single, and you want to be with a man and be married. Let's use that as an example. All relationships are masculine and feminine, so we're just using the words here to differentiate the opposite of the sex you are. If you're masculine, you're looking for a feminine. If you're feminine, you're looking for a masculine. You're female, single, and you want to be married to a man. It doesn't help you to have a hatred of men. It doesn't help you to have all men are negative, negative, negative. Whatever those 3 words you say after someone says, all men are, whatever you're saying is what you're experiencing. It doesn't help you to try and impress your subconscious when you have a hatred at the same time. There's emotional charge behind this one. There's an anchor right here. That emotional charge, remember feeling and thought together? That emotional charge is keeping you wedded to that anchorage. You're stuck in port right here. Your ship is not going to sail up to this elevation. If we would become as emotionally aroused over our ideals as we become over our dislikes, we would ascend to the plane of our ideal as easily as we now descend to the level of our hates. You can't hate men and want to be married to a man. How? How's that going to work? You can't hate that which you want to love. If you're busy hating, where's the love going to come from? Where are you going to bring the love? Where does it have space to even play? Love and hate have a magical transforming power, and we grow through their exercise into the likeness of what we contemplate. We intensify hatred, we create in ourselves the character we imagine in our enemies. By intensity of hatred, we create in ourselves the character we imagine in our enemies. By intensity of hatred, we create in ourselves the character we imagine in our enemies. Qualities die for want of attention, so the unlovely states might best be rubbed out by imagining beauty for ashes and joy for mourning, rather than by direct attacks on the state from which we would be free. Whatsoever things are lovely and of good rapport, think on these things. It doesn't matter what's in your environment. It doesn't matter what your senses are telling you. Think on these things, lovely and of good rapport. Beauty for asses, joy for mourning. That's mourning. Beauty for ashes, joy for mourning. Whatsoever things are lovely and of good rapport, think on these things, for we become that which we are in rapport. There's nothing to change but our concept of self. As soon as we succeed in transforming self, our world will dissolve and reshape itself in harmony with that which our change affirms. There's nothing to change but our concept of self. That's it. As soon as we succeed in transforming self, again, one of the reasons why know thyself is a very important phrase. As soon as we succeed in transforming self, our world will dissolve. This will dissolve and reshape itself in harmony with that which our change affirms. Oh my goodness, what a powerful, powerful last chapter of that book. Out of this world, chapter 4, no one to change but self. There's a lot in there that's wonderful. Each chapter just gets better and better and better than the last. I'm telling you, one of my favorite pieces right here. There's no transforming power in death, and whether we are here or there, we fashion in the world what surrounds us by the intensity of our imagination and feeling, and we illuminate or darken our lives by the concepts we hold of ourselves. Again, I was having those Seth classes for many years, and it always dawned on me that while we were in this party, in this dimension, in this reality, whatever we want to call it, it's the best place we can learn the lessons we want to learn, because when we're not there, it's going to be difficult to try and learn that same lesson. I just have an overwhelming intuitive feeling of that. So whatever you might, if you want to awaken your conscious awareness, follow the videos, because all we're doing is reading Neville's works. Follow his instruction. You will awaken to your awareness of being, and that will give you the ability to be aware of that there's another self behind the self you are. Here's your concept of self, and here's the awareness of being right behind you. When you first wake up, the awareness of being's there first, then it's covered by your self-concept. When you first wake up, there's your awareness of being, then your self-concept floods in right away and gives you all the definition of your challenges of life or your successes. Everything floods in after. So what we want to do is become aware of our awareness of being, learn this law of impressing your subconscious and upgrading your life. That's what we're here to do, is ascend. But learning this lesson and applying this law will also get us closer to realizing the law, which we're going to get into in another book. What a wonderful book, out of this world. Wow. Whatever you found as a good transforming part of that chapter, leave a comment. Let's talk about it. It's all fun stuff. All right, we'll see you in the next book.